All right, let's call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all. Could I get a motion to approve this is really loud tonight. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion. Whoa. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Agenda.
There's a motion. This is loud for us. There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have a little option for resident comments and questions. We have Mrs. Graham. Would you like to mention anything? We're good? All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I do have a comment as it relates to the microphones. So Vicky Sanzaiden and Brian Skoke, along with Mike Tudor, have been working probably for the last month to try to correct some of the sound issues. And so they found some of that, and so you'll notice that it sounds a little louder as it relates to your use tonight, but that will in turn help folks that are watching the live stream and then watching the re-record, help them to be better able to hear the conversation of the meeting. So,
How
Thank
come
you.
you don't sound loud?
because I'm monitoring my voice down.
Oh,
Door voice.
okay.
It's like you're talking to your kids.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. We are now to 5.1, and this is not the happiest news, but over the course of the last week, we lost a member of our family. Patty Pleckenpole passed away. She was 70 years old. The funeral, I believe, was Saturday. We went and saw the family last week. We don't do this often, but we brought a key to the city and presented it to the family, and they were very appreciative. And there were some really, really neat moments. Cindy was there, Brent was there, and other people went. But did you see the slideshow? And it showed, I mean, we all knew Patty as someone who was always in the city, and it was literally knew where the bodies were buried in a lot of different ways because she ran the cemetery. And whenever we had issues at the cemetery, Patty knew everything. If you needed a preliminary plat from 1978, you'd start looking, and Patty would say, "What are you looking for?" "Preliminary plat from 1978. Come over here." And she'd go and grab the preliminary plat from 1978. Probably short of Lucy Hartley, the biggest expertise on the city of Carver that we've ever seen. And so with heavy hearts, we do give a remembrance to Patty Pleckenpole, and we will be putting up a little plaque in City Hall in order to say thank you and a remembrance. Brent and I were talking, I don't mean to get mushy here, but we all give to this city, and we will be done with our roles within the city at some point. And the city goes on, and the city went on before we were here. It'll go on when we're gone. And it was really nice to see the outpouring from staff, from council, and consultants in remembering Patty, because she was a huge part of this community. So thank you, Patty. On that note, we'll move on. We don't have any public hearings tonight. Could I please get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no unfinished business, so we'll move right on to 9.1 and 2017 commission appointments. So we are going to start with the Parks Commission. Moving down to the Parks Commission, we currently have Natalie Cobb, board member through 2018, Leah Oy, board member through 2019, and Mickey Webb, first alternate through March of 18. I would make a motion that we appoint Ryan Gill as board member through March 1st, 2020.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. All right. I will make, sorry.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Adam Holder to, which one did we just?
Second alternate.
Right.
Second alternate.
Second alternate.
I'll second that. Oh, I guess I have to keep going. There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
So I will make a motion that we put Michael Rafferty in the board member position that expires March 1st, 2020.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I can follow that up
Keep
with
going.
another motion that we put Don Brash in the remaining board member position that expires March 1st, 2018.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I would make a motion on the Planning Commission. I would make a motion that we appoint Jim Wygand to board member March 1st of 2020.
Board member or alternate?
Board member. There's a motion. Motion seems to die for lack of a second. Moving on.
I'll make a motion that we have James Wygan serve as the first alternate on the Plan Commission.
Oh,
I will second that.
there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries.
Excuse me, Mayor, can we do a roll call vote
Yep.
on that, please? Councilmember Henry,
Aye.
Councilmember Mock,
Nay.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Monroe,
Aye.
Mayor Webb.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that Joy McKnight serve as board member on the Planning Commission until March 1st, 2020.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're almost done.
I'll make a motion that Joanne Armstrong also serve until May 1st, 2020.
Second.
March 1st.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. How are we doing, Vicki? You got all this?
No.
Oh, no, it's right up here. Good. All right.
I make a motion, we put Lori Sayre as board member from, till term expires March of 18.
There's a motion.
I'm just counting.
Motion dies for lack of a second. I would make a motion that we put Lori Sayre as second alternate.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Tinny, 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 tinny.
Are you scared?
All right. We need a board member for 3-1 to 18.
Make a motion that we appoint Seth Eggert for the last position on the Planning Commission.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The HPC.
Well, I'll make a motion that we appoint John Von Walter.
Oh, he's watching.
John, I'm very sorry.
Yes. We need you,
But
brother.
we need you, John, to the board position that expires March 1st, 2020.
I will second
Oh,
that.
I thought he was. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Oh, John, motion carries unanimously.
And then I'll make a motion that we appoint David Lavin to the board member Heritage Preservation Commission that expires March 1st, 2020.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I think we're going to have to kind of go back and look at for alternates for the HPC.
Yeah, I think we need to re-advertise for
Take
it.
a look at it. I don't think any of the others were interested in moving forward on that commission. So
Actually, why don't we just pick the two people who are in the audience?
I think, I second that.
See what happens when you show up to a meeting?
I make a motion. No, I'm kidding, Evelyn. All right, so let's move on. Do we need to make a motion to adopt that whole? Okay. Let's move on. Ms. Nash, 9.2 concept plan for Trinity Development.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you this evening is a concept plan for the what we've called the Butler property. It's approximately 50 acres on the south side of Spring Creek Drive, east of the Spring Creek neighborhood. Trinity Development is the proposed developer for this site, and Todd Cushman with Trinity is here tonight if you have any questions for him. The concept plan that they're showing shows approximately 147 lots. Because of the nature of a concept plan, it's a non-binding recommendation that you're making tonight, but at the same time, they'll take the comments that you give them and use that for their design before they submit their preliminary plat. So you may very well see changes to the design in terms of road layout, mixture of housing types, and size of lots and things like that between now and the time when you see it later. The proposal shows that there would be a connection to a primary entrance into the neighborhood from Spring Creek Drive, as well as a secondary connection to Green Ash Drive. Green Ash Drive, it's hard to see on this concept plan, but there's actually a strip of land that's approximately 16 feet wide that separates the Spring Creek neighborhood from the Butler property. So that is something that we would encourage that connection to occur, but that 16-foot wide strip of land is owned by a different person at this point in time. So while we're hoping that that occurs, we'll have to see if the property owners can work that out between them. And then the concept plan is also showing one stub street to the south to serve the what we've called the Gilbert property for several years. They are proposing two different types of housing on the site. One is a villa type of product with a smaller lot and narrower side yard setbacks than you've probably seen in many of your neighborhoods. And then the other product is about a 65-foot wide single-family lot that's similar to what you've seen in Spring Creek in the Mattamy neighborhood. Happy to answer any questions that you have, and again, Todd Cushman's also here tonight.
Please.
I just have a question concerning the west side of the development. Is any of that property part of the Big Woods?
They're on the very southeastern and southwestern tips of the property. I would anticipate that that would be part of the Big Woods. It's also bluffland, and so it would be intended that they would protect those trees.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thanks.
Cindy, that southeastern corner, I guess it would be on the bottom here. Maybe you just answered, Cindy, and I guess I didn't hear the answer. What is that going to be, and who's going to be responsible for that land?
So that's something we would work out during the preliminary plat, but typically what has occurred is that an HOA has been responsible for the ownership and maintenance of those types of areas, but that's certainly something that we'll look at in detail when the plat comes in.
Okay, that leads into my next question. I did see in here that an HOA is planned. What other shared space is necessary for this development that is outside of either homeowner responsibility or city responsibility? I see that we do have in the cul-de-sacs, we have the center islands. I hear from a lot of people, they're tired of HOAs. They are, it's just one more expense they have to have. And if it's not something that we need to have in this development, if we can remove those islands in the cul-de-sac and then the rest of the green space is either city property because it's a utility drainage pond, or like you can see in the southwest corner where the lots just go down and actually that becomes a piece of their property. Is there a possibility of that and removing an HOA entirely from this development?
No, there would still be an HOA in this development. The way that the villas work, they would, if you think of them as like a detached townhome, they will actually have an HOA that maintains the exterior lawn and the driveways and those types of features of the lots, just as you would in a townhome development, but they just happen to look like single-family homes instead.
For this entire development or just a portion of it?
I probably would have to defer to
Come on
Todd
up,
Cushman.
come
for
on
that.
up.
Is this HOA also going to take care of plowing and maintaining the roads?
No, the roads are proposed to be public.
Okay.
So they fit all of our dynamics for what we need for a road size.
We haven't seen the preliminary plan.
Right,
That's
and
something we'd
we don't
review
see
then.
trails, we don't see anything, I mean,
No, we anticipate they'll meet the city requirements.
or we say no.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Yes, in regards to the association.
Could you introduce yourself? I'm sorry.
Sorry. My name is Todd Cushman with Trinity Development.
Thank you, Todd.
In regards to the homeowners association, the villa portion of the proposed project would have the homeowners association, which would be mostly the north side of the project where the 50-foot lots are. The southern portion is the 65-foot lots, and that would be your standard single family, as you're familiar with around the area. The homeowners association is actually something that is very important to the villa product. That villa product is usually a product where those homeowners prefer to have usually a little higher end amenities, but they do not want to have the exterior maintenance of a standard single family home. And so that's why the homeowners association is involved. So to take care of everything from exterior maintenance to yards to snow removal.
Garbage?
Excuse me?
Garbage?
Yes, garbage.
As these roads loop through, will there be an obvious cutoff as to who's in the HOA and who is not in the HOA?
Yes, there would be.
Okay.
So the single family, you're not going to have an HOA?
No.
Okay. I'd rather have one, but
I'd rather not.
There might be some minimal type, but it will not have a full association in regards to the maintenance, the exterior maintenance.
Okay.
There might be something that helps take care of, maybe a monument sign or a few other things like that.
what about common areas?
So,
What about common areas in the single family? Not really any? All right,
no, there really isn't any.
okay.
So that would actually be set up from as the developer, we are going to be bringing this project through finished lots, and then we work with different builders throughout the Twin Cities area. The particular builder that we're looking at working with in this project would be the one who would be setting up the association and making sure that that's handled correctly, and they are very familiar with having projects that have multiple types of products around the Twin Cities, even just a little bit west of here out in Cologne, and then a little bit north up in Victoria.
This may be a little bit early for this plan. I know there's some, or it appears to be, there's some pretty significant changes in grade on this. Will the homes reflect that? Will you have walkouts and lookouts and ranch style, or what are your plans for that?
Again, that's going to be more of a builder decision, but with those grades, they're definitely going to be taking advantage of those grades and being able to do some walkouts where there's availability of walkouts.
Can individuals purchase a lot and have their own builder come in, or are you controlling the builders?
There will be, as of this time, there's probably only going to be one, maybe two builders that will be involved in this project.
Okay, thank you.
Cindy, that opens up a question. What does it take to have a few that might be custom lots where people could buy the lot and then choose their own home style and type and
It's up to
builder?
them.
Sure, so you have a couple neighborhoods where you could do that currently in Carver. You can do that in Christie's Bluff. The remaining lots in Carver Ridge, there's probably only a couple left there. And of course, in the Riverview Estates development up on top of 4th Street, you could select your own builder there as well. What it would take would be a developer such as Trinity Development that develops finished lots, choosing to sell them as open lots instead of as a closed neighborhood. So it's not really something that the city has control over.
Any other questions? Looks good.
Thank you.
I like it. Do you need anything from us through the process? Do you need anything from us through the process? Planning Commission's all on board?
Planning Commission has recommended approval to the city council, so we're looking.
Unanimous?
Unanimous, and so we are looking for your concurrence on the comments that were in your packet, and along with any others you'd like to add.
I'll make a motion to approve the concept plan presented by Trinity Development for the Butler property, subject to comments in the staff memo.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I have one thing. When do you want to break ground?
We would like to break ground this year, preferably late summer.
Late summer?
Yep.
Wow, all right. Any other discussion, questions? There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Welcome aboard.
Thank you for coming in.
The patient task force report. Ladies and gentlemen, architects from Leo A. Daly.
Welcome, welcome.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council. We appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening, share with you in summary form multiple months of work of the task force and our team. Briefly, I'll introduce myself. I'm Cindy McCleary. I'm with Leo A. Daly Architects and Engineers. I'm an architect by training, and I lead our government design practice.
And I'm Alexa Iverson, also at Leo A. Daly, architectural intern.
Excellent. So we're going to move fairly quickly through this PowerPoint that we've developed for you all. It's intended to be a summary of the entire activities of the task force, which includes all of the information developed and some final summation comments, which we'll share with you as we proceed. Wanted to start by recognizing all of the task force participants. It was widely attended. There were quite a few active conversations, as you can see from the images on the right. The first couple meetings in particular was a great opportunity for people to share their thoughts about the community, what brought them to Carver, what continues to keep them here in Carver, why they've chosen to raise families here, things of that sort. Also to be able to start pulling some imagery of the types of images that Carver reflects for them. So that it was a tool to be able to share the importance of history or the importance of vision or the importance of outdoor space, things of that sort. But we do want to recognize the task force on the slide. All of the work that we're presenting tonight is actually summation of the words of the task force itself. We see ourselves as being facilitators in that process. But a big piece of that early effort was to develop their vision for the vision of Village Hall. So I'll read this to you. The vision of the Village Hall is to provide a flexible, engaging community destination for uniting the people of Carver and the landscape to respect the past, build for the present and future. This vision statement was established through that activity that you saw in the prior image, where people were grabbing images that reflected in their eyes the community itself and those things that attracted them to it. And so each of these series of words are directly attributed to their vision, their view from that activity. The next steps in those processes were to sit down and really inventory what it is that a vision of the Village Hall could look like, to establish some guiding principles, if you will. These guiding principles were a rollout from the vision conversation, trying to come up with a tight summation of the 5, 6, 7 key common beliefs of the task force. So these guiding principles, all 6 of them, were established in the early meetings, were reviewed and refined through the course of the meetings, and then were eventually utilized as the tool for being able to determine if individual concepts met the vision of the task force originally established or fell short of meeting that vision. So we're going to come back to those guiding principles as we move on. Primarily, though, a common space for gathering for community and activities, a place that respects past and grows towards the future, a place that reflects the uniqueness of Carver, a place that engages the space outside of the building, a place that supports city services and staff, and a place that supports today's needs and the future's. Rolling out from that vision statement, what we wanted to do is really facilitate an opportunity for people to put images to those 6 guiding principles. What we find in going through these processes is someone might say, I want a welcoming environment, or I want a warm environment. And that will denote a certain image to each one of us individually, and those images may not be common. And so after we've struck the common language of the guiding principles, we use images, photographs, to be able to put some common thread to that. And so this is starting to show you the images that they collected to discuss in visual terms what a community gathering space for community activities and partnerships looks like. And my thing stopped working.
You're going too far.
Well, there you go. There's a vision in a nutshell, all right. Okay, there we go. All right. So these images reflect a space that's welcoming, that celebrates the community, that's a space for celebration, a space for congregation, space for special events, for dining, for discussion, a place that reflects the past and grows towards the future. Images that represent the river town, the multiple generations and the multiple years of history in this town, the historic district, are all images that reflected a uniqueness to the past. A place that reflects the uniqueness of Carver. Images included natural materials, stone, wood, obviously some references to historic architecture and heritage. On the upper right is the new station that has that similar kind of small town kind of quality to it, but the materiality of stone and brick and wood and glass. A place that engages the spaces outside of the building. We talked about spaces that you could actually sit in, you could relax in, you could sit and dine. Meetings could spill out at the end of a meeting or activity into a plaza space, but there's an outdoor programming kind of function to this space that's just as much about congregating and gathering and inviting as the indoor spaces. A place that supports city services and staff, recognizing that this Village Hall, City Hall need also is a place that represents the community. It represents governance. It's a place for meeting. It's a place for serving. It's a place for voting. It's a place for building permits, et cetera. It's dealing with the sort of day-to-day business of the city. And a place that serves today's needs and the future's needs. So after going through the visioning process to establish the overall sort of 6 guiding principles and put some imagery to that, we went through an effort to be able to quantify the amount of space required for a village hall and a city hall. And we did that through a series of note-taking. People identified for us what they wanted to see: a meeting space, a dining space, a kitchen, a place to meet, a place for council events, a place for dining, for pancake breakfasts, for knitting, a variety of things. We sort of inventoried all of those. We then, as architects, went back and started to put pencil to paper to be able to understand how much square footage a building would require to serve some of these functions. How many of these functions could occur within the same space? So we've got spaces that are being purposefully and heavily used in order to quantify how big a village hall space would need to be to support this community and how big a city hall space would need to be to support this community. So what we're showing on the left, on the top is the city hall existing, on the bottom is the village hall existing. The blue is indicating the amount of square footage the existing city hall currently has, and the orange is indicating the amount of square footage the City Hall will need for today's and tomorrow's needs. Below that, similarly, the Village Hall, blue being the current existing square footage, orange being the necessary square footage to take us into the future. That sort of hatched extra orange, that light orange there, that came specifically as a result of a couple comments about the need for gym space within the community. And so we color-coded that as a little bit different of a color than the orange. It's certainly a need of the community. But there was conversation about that being potentially a future activity or future phase, or possibilities of partnership with the community center adjacent to you, and the adjacent community or the schools. And so we're treating that as an additional potential one. On the right shows you if we were to do a combined City Hall, Village Hall for the collective needs, how does that space lay out proportionally? And what you can see here is the vast majority of the space is being dedicated to Meeting Hall, to Village Hall, to that large sort of open dining space and the necessary support space to enable that. That support space being restrooms and kitchen and back of house, things of that sort. The other functions being obviously lobby, some office space, some meeting room spaces, council spaces. And general circulation actually is quite large as well. What we find is people tend to leave the meetings and continue the conversation out in the hallway, and we want to provide ample space for that. After understanding generally what those proportions of spaces were, we laid out a few options for how the spaces could arrange themselves. The purpose for us doing this as architects and showing this to the task force is just to open the ideas that there's a variety of different ways this building or this space could lay out. No one of them is being recommended today. If you choose to proceed into the next steps, as the council and others define them to be, there'll be a series of schemes on how the building can lay itself out. But this is just showing one particular arrangement, yet another particular arrangement, yet another particular arrangement. Our purpose for doing that is to confirm that the overall square footage meets a general and reasonable layout for being able to organize the space. And it helps us understand the footprint, the overall length and width of the site of a building might take, so that we can use it to help evaluate the appropriate size of sites. Sorry, I keep doing this double clicky thing.
Is that an architectural term?
That's the technical term. Did you know that, the double clicky thing?
Double clicky thing.
Yeah. It's one word, actually, just all jammed in together. So this image was wanting to represent the next series of activities after we had an understanding of what the vision was going to be, after we had an understanding of the general size required for these two components, either singularly, Village Hall, City Hall, or combined. Went through a series of test fits to lay out these various arrangements on sites with associated space for parking, outdoor space, storm water, setbacks, that type of thing. The reason for laying these things out on a site is to confirm the overall size of the site necessary for a development. What we find on sites like this is obviously there's a certain amount of lost land, if you will, that's in setbacks and curb cuts, and sometimes there's features in the site, as you saw in the Trinity development, that the terrain doesn't enable, effective construction, et cetera. So we lay these out recognizing that no site is going to be entirely 100% buildable, but we've got enough ability in there to be able to determine an overall square footage or acreage required for a site. As we did that, we asked the task force then to go through the process of identifying what are the qualities in a site that they would look for. We talked about access to neighborhoods, adjacency to neighborhoods, access to sidewalks, access to other features within the community, things of that sort. Much like we did when we inventoried the list of all the space needs, we inventoried all of the lists of the site qualities that the task force foresaw as being successful or potential positive characteristics of a site. Went through a similar process of narrowing down those characteristics. And these site qualities then were the site qualities that were used to help evaluate the sites that were then eventually considered. So community services and the access to services is important, and possibly suggests a location near growth areas. Prefer a location that's on a primary street thoroughfare. There's quite a bit of discussion about this as to whether or not it should be embedded in a neighborhood, on the edge of a neighborhood, or on a primary thoroughfare. The group agreed it should be on a primary thoroughfare. Accessible to city or accessibility to city residents is important, but prefer that it not be in a neighborhood so the traffic doesn't overwhelm the neighborhood. Enough surrounding space to accommodate future growth, and that's future growth specifically to this particular building and the functions, and a preference for visibility to the natural scenery. And that goes back to conversations earlier about the natural environment, access to the river, natural materials, things of that sort. So these were the 5 site qualities that were utilized. There we go. So this is a small map, so bear with us, but all of the little black dots and the orange ones are a variety of sites that were identified as being potential. They're certainly not all within the ownership of the city. The intention was not necessarily for them to be all within the ownership of the city, but to look at a variety of different sites for the purposes of talking about whether or not they meet the site criteria. Are they in a neighborhood? Are they adjacent to a neighborhood? Are they on a main thoroughfare, et cetera? Some of those sites obviously fell off the list pretty quickly as we started going through the process of using the site criteria to determine whether or not the site met the intent of the task force. That dropped a few of the sites right off the bat. The other strategy that was utilized to narrow down the sites, frankly, was site size. So we did the test fit, those different arrangements that we showed you with the parking lot and the stormwater, et cetera, to arrive at a particular site size. Many of the sites, particularly the downtown sites, fell off the list because they were inadequate in size to be able to accommodate both the building and parking, building and expansion, meet today's and tomorrow's needs, those 6 site characteristics, and the 6 guiding principles that were identified at the beginning of the proposal. The 3 sites that rose to the top at the end are the 3 that are identified in orange, and those are the 3 that the task force are forwarding for possible consideration to the council. 926th Street, referred to as Site D. The site south of the current fire station, referred to as Site B. And the former wastewater treatment site, referred to as Site A. Again, we took those little diagrams of the potential layout of the building and plopped them on the site so you can see the relative size of the site relative to the buildings. Little deceiving as it doesn't have the parking and stormwater and there's other things on there, but we wanted to show you a proportion of site size to site size. Okay. After we've narrowed those down, then we looked at we as architects looked at the 3 potential opportunities for the existing building. One of the conversations was specific to how do we address the needs of the existing building. Can we modify? Can we renovate? Can we update? Can we expand and enhance? And so any part or a part of any project is looking at a range of options. Whether that range of options ends up being the final selection or not is less important as understanding what the range could enable or what you'd have to give up in order to achieve that concept. So we'll talk about this in great detail. So the village hall repair is one option. So the option we looked at here specifically was extremely light repair only of the existing structural conditions. The village hall building, as you know, sits downtown here. It does not have adequate ADA access to the restrooms, doesn't have adequate stairs and elevator access to the lower levels, so it's not accessible by code standpoint to those lower levels. The kitchen and the mechanical systems don't meet current code, and then there's the structural conditions as well. So the village hall repair option is looking specifically at repairing the structural only conditions to the building. Okay. We then looked at a village hall reuse option. The village hall reuse option deals with the structural modifications to the building to repair the existing condition and addresses those code deficiencies, those maintenance deficiencies that we talked about. The ADA restrooms, accessible stair and elevators, adequate kitchen with contemporary mechanical systems to meet health code, things of those sorts. We also looked at the potential of being able to renovate it to meet the full city needs of the city hall. And so what you're seeing here is a layout that shows a general arrangement on how the space would need to be reorganized to be able to accommodate both city hall and village hall functions and those required code and building upgrades that we discussed. Okay. We also then looked at a potential layout on Site A with parking. The white is current parking required. The gray would be expansion parking should a gym be added at some point in time. We also looked at this on Site B, just south of the fire station. And we also looked at a new combined facility on Site D. With those 5 options on the table, the task force utilized then their guiding principles in order to vet each of these options to determine if they met each of the intended options, each of the intended goals that they set off in the first task force meeting. So each of the 5 options are listed down the left side here. The guiding principles, numbers 1 through 6, go back to that first slide, the guiding principles slide that we talked about. We literally went concept by concept, guiding principle by guiding principle, and facilitated a conversation. Does this option meet principle 1? If it didn't meet it, the box is white. Does this option meet principle 2? If it met it, it was green. In those instances where we have, such as the Village Hall renovation, a couple light greens, we had mixed response. So we generally work on a concept of consensus-based decision-making, not unanimous-based decision-making. The vast majority of the, in fact, all of the items that were white and green were in fact consensus items. The light green, we kind of had a split vote, if you will. As you can see, those sites that are more densely populated with green boxes, sites A, B, and D, are the ones that met the vast majority or all of the guiding principles. So this was the tool utilized to help evaluate whether or not it met the current and future needs of the city, etc. So as those 5 options were sitting there being vetted, we, as architects, then went through the process of developing some cost estimates to further elaborate on what the impact of each of these 5 options would be for the purposes of just understanding investment in scale, financial investment in scale. So as we develop costs, we wanted to share with you that these costs are overall project costs. So these are intended, at this point in time, it's a pre-designed, so it's very early in the process, but intended to be complete and total project costs. So it's your full buy-in cost, if you will. They're made up of construction costs, and the construction cost is anything related to the hard construction of a building. Site work, hard construction work, infrastructure being roads or utility work or curb cuts or things of that sort required to gain access to the site, kitchen equipment, technology, media, etc. Any of those things required for the actual physical construction. The second bucket of money that was considered is soft costs. And the soft costs are those things that are required to make a project happen but aren't necessarily construction related. They're estimation fees, their legal counsel fees, their plan permit reviews, things of that sort. Construction plus cost equals total project cost. Okay, so the numbers we're about to share with you are total project costs. This is the fully anticipated buy-in at this point in time. Okay. So reviewing again these 5 options, after we've already facilitated the process of determining if they did or did not meet the guiding principles, we then shared the general cost parameters for each of those projects. Village Hall being about $675,000, Village hall repair, excuse me. Village hall renovation being about 3. Site D being about 5.7. Site B being about 7.5, and Site A being about 7.7. As is typically the case on projects, we recognize that construction costs are really expensive, and we recognize that many of our clients ask us to help them understand what a phase 1, phase 2 might look like, as a way of being able to modify or manage first-time costs, or being able to sort of grow into, if you will, an overall building need. So what we wanted to share with you here are 2 different cost scenarios that help to describe what that might look like. Okay? So what we have here on the top is a village hall renovation option. We're going to renovate the existing village hall in 2018, and that comes at about $3.4 million. Sometime down the road, 2025, or we picked that as a good number, 2025, or at some point when it's deemed appropriate, build a city hall expansion and renovate the existing village hall. At that point in time, we will have received some significant escalation over time, and so the numbers that you saw on the prior page get escalated up each year. They grow each year. And so doing a modest renovation of Village Hall now and waiting a period of time before you complete the full needs of the community comes in at a total cost of about $11.5 million. Okay. Scenario B is, what if you do the entire thing now, or in 2 years, or 3 years, or 4 years down the road? Okay. Scenario B is looking at a new city hall and new village hall in 2018 dollars of about $8.5 million. Okay, if we escalate that and you say you don't do it in 2018, we do it in 2020, what does it look like? What does it look like in 22? What does it look like in 2024? What we're showing with these 2 different scenarios is what happens if I do a little bit now and a little bit later versus what happens if I do the whole thing now. So I'm going to go back to this slide for just a second just to make this point. So it's very common for people to believe if I do a little bit now because I can afford this now and I come back and do a little bit later, that's going to be my most cost-effective strategy. What we see is a little bit now, a little bit later, actually it has a total buy-in of 11.5. Doing everything you need now has a total buy-in of 8.5. The reason for that is escalation is not on our side. Construction dollars are going up, trade labor is going up, skilled labor is going up. We see those numbers go up. Okay. As we look at then what the tax impact might be for each of these, we recognize as architects that these numbers can be quite large at times to communities, and we encourage you to consider that the cost or the investment of these to be relative to the tax impact of the individual residents. So we look at these from a tax impact standpoint. This is based upon those same numbers that we provided prior, but it shows you the scale of the impact per $300,000 household, I believe. Okay. I believe that is there. Oh.
Double thingy.
God, I know. What is it? What did I double clicky thing or something? Yep. Is that what it was? There we go. Triple clicky thing. There we go.
Well
All right.
done.
So that comes back to revisiting, again, some of the original conversations that the task force has had, recognizing they've gone through a process of establishing their guiding principles, vetting those guiding principles, defining the space need, looking at sites, defining the site criteria, now understanding what the costs and impacts what might be, came back around to summarize the overall vision of the task force related to the village hall and the city hall. And again, the task force went back to their original guiding principles as the recommendation that they'd like to bring forward to the council tonight. And that is they look for a space that reflects the uniqueness of Carver, that respects the past and grows towards the future, supports city staff and services, that's a common gathering space, and engages the space outside of the building. looking for a space that serves not just today's needs, but the future need as well. So the next steps, resident engagement and information. As this information is being brought then to the council and to the community, there are a variety of strategies that the city is going to utilize to be able to bring this information further forward to the community. It'll be on the website, Facebook, Twitter, and email. It'll be within the newsletter and utility bill inserts. There'll be an upcoming open house, March 13th. The City Council listening session on March 27th. And then the City Council will make a preferred choice selection on Monday, April 17th. So with that, I know it was quite a bit of information we shared really quickly. We're more than willing to go back to any point in the presentation to further elaborate or answer questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Any concerns?
I just want to make a comment. I thought that you facilitated the task force meetings very, very well.
Thank you.
I think if anybody in the audience who was not involved in the task force, or if they were, and if they have questions, that's who we should direct to ask them.
Well, I think that's where, and my question was, will you be at the open house on Monday, March 13th?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I mean, that's the process. We were a part of it, but the process wasn't us. It was Leo A. Daly and the public, and it was a great process. And I've been through task force on City Hall numerous times, and your job was difficult, but I think you did a phenomenal job. And this is very, for lack of a better word, summative, and it brings back, I think, the intent of the entire task force and presents a very clear picture of what we did and what we did as a group. So the only thing I wanted to make sure is that we have a firm idea of open house on Monday, March 13th. You will be there to understand, the public can understand that that's your process. Then we do a listening session on Monday, March 27th, where we don't engage with, it's not a back and forth, it's really the idea where the council can sit back and take in the public's comments and opinions. And then we have from March 27th to April 17th to make a preferred choice.
I would like to make a motion that we actually accept the task force report and direct staff to proceed with the engagement plan.
There is a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Other discussion, Mr. Merrick?
Excuse me, Cindy, could you just, for the benefit of the council and, the residents who may be watching, distinguish how the construction costs are put together for the new sites versus the numbers that we got from Greystone Construction, and kind of the difference in that distinction?
Yes, absolutely. I'm just going to go back to the slide for those that are watching digitally. Okay. So as it relates to the Greystone Construction, so Greystone Construction is a construction company. As they created the cost projection for the Village Hall structural modification, their costs fall in that very first orange bucket, the construction costs required for Village Hall structural modification. What wasn't included in Greystone, it wouldn't be, frankly, in a construction number, it would be in the overall city's budget, would be the soft cost required to hire them, to permit it, to hire a design firm, architect or engineer to produce drawings, to have inspectors come out and review the site, etc. All those soft costs weren't in that original Greystone number. So we took Greystone, plus the projection for those soft costs, the costs specifically related to the city cost for the project, in order to arrive at a total project cost. Okay, so as we go back to these numbers then, these Village Hall repair at $675, that's the all-in project cost. That's the Greystone plus the cost that the city is going to incur for design architects and reviews and inspections, things of that sort. For the Village Hall renovation, our cost estimator produced the estimates for the Village Hall renovation, site D, B, and A. And that cost estimator used a variety of different tools for doing that. We look at 6-month historic data. And so we looked at the last 6 months of 2016. That's the best data we have. So you'll see references up here to 2016 construction numbers. Doesn't mean they're outdated, even though we're in 2017 right now. That's the last 6 months of construction data, and it's as closely reflective of the current market as we could. Those numbers then, the Village Hall renovation DB&A also included construction cost plus soft cost to get to total project. So all of these numbers are total project cost. The other thing related to the Village Hall renovation, because the renovation is of course different than new construction. New construction, we can look at the going rate of ground up construction for new construction relatively easy. For renovation costs, we kind of have to get into the weeds a little bit in terms of what is the existing building infrastructure? What's the existing building skin? Does it have insulation? Does the roof meet code? What's it going to require to modify? What is it going to require to drop an elevator into an already existing building? Those things have a different kind of cost impact to them than new construction. Village Hall happens to not have adequate insulation, happens to not have an adequate roof insulation, doesn't meet energy code, doesn't have adequate mechanical electricals, doesn't have adequate bathrooms, doesn't have adequate stairs, doesn't have adequate elevators. So by the time you start sort of adding these numbers in, that number creeps up pretty quickly. So the difference between the Village Hall repair and the Village Hall renovation is dealing with those kind of deferred maintenance or existing conditions. Does that answer that question?
Yep, and just one more follow-up point of clarification. For folks that have been following the process since the beginning, and I'd mark the beginning as kind of the closure of Village Hall, WSB, the structural engineer, developed some scenarios, one of them being a temporary just to kind of get into the building. There was another scenario that included some wall bracing within the gymnasium, and then there was the full repair. The full repair is listed as that 675 number, but if Cindy, if you could, for the public's benefit and to refresh the council, get into some of the conversations regarding the wall bracing and the temporary scenario as it relates to the guiding principles that the commission discussed. I think there could eventually be some confusion. We can follow up with residents, but why aren't those two scenarios shown? Because there were so many numbers that were discussed early on, and I think it would help for clarification purposes to just kind of walk folks through that discussion that the task force had related to those pieces.
Okay, very good. So I'm just going to go back again for our at-home viewers. Sort of QVC-like, right? We'll get there.
Are you double-clicky thingy?
Yeah, I'm my double-clicky thingy to get somewhere for my at-home viewers. There we go. Okay, guiding principles. So I wanted to bring this up. So to get to the answer of Brett's question, there were a variety of different levels of modification of the structure of the existing Village Hall. There was immediate repair and brace. There was repair and brace that required some new columns and footing and foundations, which would come through the center of the structure, so it would impact the ability to use that space as a gym. And then there were more advanced structural modifications. As we talked about, or as the task force specifically talked about those three potential alternatives to addressing the existing Village Hall, what we encouraged them to consider was to come back and consider the guiding principles. Because it's very easy to immediately sort of jump into the lowest cost solution or the easiest solution or the quickest solution. But in doing so, make sure that that's a valid and sound financial investment, or that the emotional investment is so significant that it is more important than a valid and sound financial investment. And so our way of being able to facilitate that conversation was to encourage folks to consider the guiding principles relative to any of the Village Hall options, or frankly, to any of the options. Does a repair, modest, mid, or maximum of the Village Hall meet a community gathering space? Does it meet a place that reflects the past and grows towards the future? And you can see as we showed those blue bars and the orange bars of the existing space and the need, it doesn't adequately meet the need nor the growth of the future. Is it a place that reflects the uniqueness of Carver? This is one that was challenging for folks. It is in the historic district, and there was a lot of conversation and love about the fact that it was in the historic district. It's a point of pride for folks. I think there were a lot of folks that recognized that the building architecture wasn't significantly contributing to the historic architecture. It's not a historic building.
I think the biggest thing was that the Lions built it.
Right, so it was emotional, not necessarily, right, historic, right? A place that engages the spaces outside of the building. There's conversations about the fact there isn't outdoor space and there isn't adequate parking. A place that supports city services and staff. It's currently undersized at the moment to support city services and staff. And a place that serves today's needs and the futures. So as we looked at those three options relative to repairing the village hall, we encourage folks to consider, does it meet these guiding principles or not? And use that as a tool for determining what the right path forward is. That answer that question?
Thank you. So we have a motion, we have a second. We are currently in other discussion, if there is other discussion. Any questions? There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you on March 13th, both of you.
And John,
Bring John.
you knew that was coming.
I knew that was coming.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for your work.
Mayor and Council,
Yes.
if we could also recognize Evelyn Grimm. She's a task force
Oh,
member
I
that was-
apologize. Evelyn, you know what? Thank you so much for being a part of the task force. We appreciate it greatly.
Thank you.
You were a big help, as always. And Marv was a big help, especially because he's bigger than me. Say hi to Marv. Thank you, Brent. Let us move on to the annexation update. Mr. Merrick.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In your packet is a memo from the City Attorney Larry Harris, along with the order from Judge Broughton related to the annexation issue that the City of Carver and Dahlgren Township have been working on over the last several months. The judge ruled in the city and township's favor on all the issues related to it. There is a 60-day, I believe a 60-day window for the ruling to be appealed. I'm not going to pretend to be an attorney as far as what happens next, but I did tell Larry that I'd pass along any questions that the council did have, and then try to have those answered in the interim or at your next meeting.
Courtney?
Question. So in his memo, Larry says that he has no indication if there's going to be an appeal. Is there ever an indication given, or do we figure out once they file?
They file.
I would say the latter.
Okay.
It was reported in the Chaska Herald that the Office of Administrative Hearings didn't indicate whether or not they were going to appeal. So going on that, we just don't
They
know.
didn't respond at all. I would like to note that I've been involved on this council. This is my 19th year, and this is the first time that I've had the occasion to go to court with Mr. Harris, and I think that we should all be very happy he's on our side.
He did
Truly.
a really good job.
He's my buddy. Thank you, Brent. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like forward on to our city attorney? Let's move on to 10.2, Mr. Merrick.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Last Friday, staff was fortunate enough to have a meeting with some small business owners, some of the shops of Carver, Lori Osterdyke from a cup of Carver, Lori Cox from, I forgot what the name of the farm is, like Roots Returned. Jenny Schultz was there as well, and a couple of other shops, and just really got out some of the issues that frankly were cited by a Carver Junk Company related to their move out of the historic district and into Chaska. And so one of the things that I got of it is just a lot of positivity from the group. There's a lot of energy related to communication and organization. We went over the downtown master plan, some of the marketing materials that the city has produced over the last several years. And I think moving forward, what we're looking to do is develop a consistent meeting. And for those of you that have been around for a longer period of time, resurrecting the Carver Business Council that went from more of a local group to the Southwest Chamber being more involved, and that meeting evolved into kind of the Carver meet and greet. And so there's a want and a desire to get that Carver Business Council out to connect on city issues, to seek opportunities for having multiple events. One of the ideas, which I was able to confirm with Chaska Rec today, is we're going to look at doing our summer concert series on the Thursday nights of the third Thursday of the month, so it coincides with the Shops of Carver being open. And so we're able to do that, and so now those concerts will be on the same night, and so those stores have indicated that they'll stay open longer, so you have more than just one thing to do. Just going to the concert, you can have folks go to the concert and do some shopping, etc. So it'll be an opportunity to keep an open line of communication. And one of the things that the group mentioned was meeting on that, I think it was the third Friday of the month during the occasional stores opening, and then having that meeting, and then having a liaison from the city council attend. And so one of the things I'd be looking for from the council tonight is having the council motion to put somebody on as a liaison to that group. So, because I do think there's an added benefit. It's one thing to have, you know, a staff representation and communicate kind of the ins and outs of what's happening, issues, etc. We talked a little bit about this Village Hall process. We talked about the 3rd Street bridge options, but having an elected official's perspective, I think is going to be really helpful. We had Councilmember Johnson attend that meeting, and she was able to provide some perspectives that I couldn't have just being as a staff member. So happy to answer any questions, and I know Councilmember Johnson might have some perspectives to share from the meeting as well.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a really good meeting. Brent led a really thoughtful discussion. I think just as long as we have that dialogue with the small business owners, it's really important. I think everybody felt heard, and there was some super minor requests that we've received from the business owners, such as putting the weekend and the dates of the next occasional sales, or when the Shops of Carver are open, on the scrolling sign that's on Village Hall. So super easy stuff that we're able to do, but it's just good to start that dialogue and to be receptive to their concerns.
Agreed. Do you have an interest in being on that? I would make a motion that we appoint Councilmember, it's hard, Courtney, to the Downtown Business Council Liaison.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited.
That's good. That's quite frankly what everybody needs is excitement on that. So we're happy to have you. We are now to the point where I say Monroe.
Nothing.
Johnson.
Oh, wait,
Oh, Monroe.
can I go back?
Yes. Oh, please. We really adhere to Robert's rules around here.
Sorry, I forgot. This isn't anything with the council. I just wanted to make an announcement that Second Alarm is having the Operation Smile Chili Feed at the VFW on Saturday, this Saturday, from 11 to 5. Who said that? 11 to 5. Thank you, Greg. 11 to 5.
And let's make a note that that's Chaska VFW.
Yes, it's the Chaska VFW.
Got it. Johnson?
Please come.
In addition to the business council meeting, we had a planning commission meeting last Thursday night, and it was a really full agenda, which is more of the norm from what I understand, which is really good to see.
That's it? Mark?
I do not have anything.
Hank?
The Parks Commission got together, we spoke about the Trinity development and tree sale. That's what I got.
Right on. Do you have anything, Brent? The only thing I have is just another note to keep Patty Pleckenpole's family in your thoughts, and take donations for a little plaque for Patty Pleckenpole. I threw that at you because you didn't know I was going to say it, but I think Patty deserves it. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, all right. And a second.
Oh, sorry.
No, we're good. We're good. We're good. It's exciting. It's exciting. Motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Kenny, you applying for the permit? bigger. Look at Cindy's.